What if you could take that risk, make that change, reach that goal, live your best life? Welcome to another episode of the What If You Could podcast, where we get together with amazing experts and everyday people who share challenges, encourage healing, and explore the possibilities that life has to offer. I'm your host, Gary Scott, and I'm excited that you're along for the ride. Hey, everybody. Welcome to another episode of the What If You Could podcast. And today, for you lucky guys, I've got a triple threat on my hands here. I have Dr. Albert Bramante. Hello, Dr. Albert Bramante. How are you?
Hello, Mr. Gary Scott. I'm happy to be here. Thank
Yay,
you for inviting me.
we're going to have some fun. We're going to have some fun. And we're going to get into what your books. We're going to talk about why you're a triple threat. We're going to share all your experiences. But first, I just want to read a quick bio if I can. Is that okay with you?
Sure, absolutely.
Awesome. Cool, Biz. So, guys, we have Dr. Albert Bramante is a seasoned talent agent with more than 2 decades of experience in the entertainment industry. He also holds a Ph.D. in psychology from Walden University. Additionally, he is a certified hypnotist and NLP practitioner, bringing a unique blend of psychology, insight, and practical expertise to his work. Driven by a passion for both the performing arts and the human psyche, he embarked on a mission to empower actors to overcome self-sabotage and unlock their full potential. Throughout his impressive career, Dr. Bramante has achieved remarkable success as a talent agent, securing roles for agents in a wide array of productions, including TV shows, films, commercials, Broadway, and off-Broadway performances. And that has to be super cool and exciting because we all love that stuff. But welcome, my friend. Welcome, sir.
Well, again, thank you again for having me here. I'm really, happy to be here.
Yeah, well, we're going to jump on into all this, but like I said, I'm contractually obligated by myself. No one actually gives a shit, but by myself to ask all my guests the one question, and it's the what if you could question. So, Doc, do you have a what if you could thought for us? Have you ever had a what if you could moment, or is there still a what if I could for your future you'd love to share?
I guess what if I could travel around the world? I mean, I've always wanted to do a worldwide travel, around the world and visit the others, the seven continents altogether, seven wonders of the world. They would say. Just to get other people's perspectives, learn about other cultures, and spend time in different countries and neighborhoods and all that and communities.
I love
So
that.
that's on my like bucket list. You could say is I see sometimes there's advertised as like 6 month cruises around the world. Yeah, that's on my bucket list.
That is awesome. That is awesome. And I mean, with the way your business is, I mean, shoot, they're filming more stuff around the world than they're filming in Hollywood now. So, yeah, you got to jump
Absolutely.
on that bandwagon.
Yes, yeah, and especially in the past year and a half, a lot of productions have moved outside of the United States, Canada, Europe, Australia, and even in the Middle East, Emirates and all that have started to see right surge in productions because it's
Yeah.
cheaper a lot of times to film outside, and so that's definitely a good option. Plus, I just want to see and experience other cultures and other societies.
There's a cruise ship. I don't know if it's still around, but it was called The World. And basically, you're on this thing for a year. And it's like super luxurious high end, and you like buy a condo on this cruise ship or whatever, like it's your own massive stateroom, and you literally are you travel the entire world for a year. It's like a $500,000 or something like that. It's just something maybe even more than that, but yeah, that would be pretty crazy, right?
That would be amazing. That would that would be the first thing, and I'd be right on that if that became available.
And if you, I don't know if it's still around, but I Googled it and I looked at these like these staterooms, and they're like freaking gorgeous, man. I mean, they're just like these custom condo awesome things. So we'll look into that. We'll do that next podcast. You'll come back and tell us how you traveled the world.
Yes, yeah, I'll make sure I take pictures and do social media, lives and all that from
I
them.
love it. I love it. Well, I I used to be a thespian when I was in high school. I did a couple plays in high school. That makes me a thespian. Um,
Absolutely.
but I have a lot of family in show business. Just all most of my family on one side is all show business, editors, producers, folly editors, you know. So they've all been in it. So I've been around it my whole life, and I just loved what you put there about helping performers with their breakthrough of self-doubt, imposter syndrome, fear of success, and self-sabotaging patterns. I mean, that's
Yes.
big in the outside world, but man, it's massive in your world, isn't it? Those four things.
100%. And that's part of the reason why I wrote the book, Rise Above the Strip.
Mhm.
Because when I first started as an agent, 20 years ago, I was noticing a lot of factors were self sabotaging. They were not showing up for auditions. They were not preparing fully for auditions. They would find excuses not to go on auditions, and it was amazing to me because I couldn't figure it out. It was a mystery. Why are these? And these are the same actors that were like telling me how much they wanted to work. And I'm like, in my head, I'm like, well, I'm giving you this opportunities, and you're not taking them.
And it's I would imagine it doesn't really even matter how big of a star or how many roles you've done. I mean, every time you go for the next one, you're probably scared, and the next
Oh, for
prettiest girl or the next handsome guy, or there's always
Mhm.
someone chasing your tail. I don't think it probably ever goes away, right?
No, and one of the myths about imposter syndrome is some people think, well, most successful people don't have it. Actually, I think a lot of times the more successful you are, the greater likelihood you may have that, imposter syndrome and self doubt. So, and with actors, especially because anybody really in show business, it's a gig to gig economy. So it's not like a career where you're going to be working steadily in one company for 10 years. As soon as the job is over, the gig is over. Now you have to go out and prove yourself again and again and again. And there's no guarantees that the next job or production is going to hire you.
Yeah.
And
And that's
so,
scary. That's scary for a lot of people. I mean, I'm a real estate broker, and for me, it's the same thing. Every day I wake up, I'm broke. I'm every day I wake up, I'm unemployed. I have to go find another buyer to help sell a home or a seller to help sell their
yeah,
home. If not, I don't eat. So you're
yeah.
chasing that. You're always chasing that next role or that next transaction. It's tough.
Yeah, and then especially when you have, an economy sometimes that's not entirely favorable, because like obviously, for realtors, you had a couple recessions and downturns in the economy. For us, in our business, we had COVID in 2020, which
Yeah.
white really did a doozy on us. And then in 2023, we didn't have one, but two strikes. We had the Writers Guild went on strike, and then the Screen Actors Guild went on strike right around the same time. So now you're dealing with two strikes at once. That lasted a while because they weren't things that settled quickly. Yeah, I think it was like at least 6 to 8 months before we saw a settlement. Which really put us down on hold. And then that's what I think was the driving force for a lot of productions going outside of the United States for, again, tax reasons, incentives, and all of that. So now we're starting to see a lot of lawmakers, like in New York and Hollywood, are scrambling to bring productions back to the states because it's not just actors that are working. You have editors, you have you know makeup artists, you have production people, production assistants that are all struggling now.
Yeah. I'm one of those weird guys because, like I said, my family's been in this business forever. I'm one of those weird guy who actually sits through all. the real the closing credits as it goes down, all the way to the caterers. I go all the way down. Number one, I like to see where it was filmed. That's usually at the very end. It says, "Oh,
Hmm.
thank you, Canada," or "Thank you, Ireland," or whatever. But I mean, people don't realize how many freaking people it takes to make a movie. I mean, I've
Yeah.
one of my family members, actually my son's wife's father-in-law, he was a driver, and you think, well, it's not that big of a deal, but it's a union. They got paid pretty good dough, and he was busy, and then all of a sudden he's done. I mean, he's completely shut off, and you're like, holy cow. So I mean, it affected. I mean, from the top all the way down to the grips, the caterers, the
Oh
drivers,
yeah.
the carpenters. I mean, it's incredible how many people it takes to do these things.
Yeah, I think it's estimated like a full budget movie is anywhere from 500 to 1,000 people at least behind the scenes.
Yeah.
And even with a TV series, that takes a lot of work too. You have at least sometimes 100 people working on a every TV episode behind the scenes between, lighting, the set design, and editing and sound and all of that. And it looks so flawless to us, to the
Yeah.
viewer, but there's so much going on behind the scenes.
Yeah, my buddy is doing he was going to do a project in Hollywood, and then it moved to Georgia, and then it just got postponed for some reason, and now they're going to Ireland. And he
Hmm.
said it's going to be cheaper to send 150 people to Ireland to do this production than it would have been to do it in Hollywood. I mean, that's
Yeah,
crazy. Shipping 150 people for like 6 months to another country is cheaper than doing it right in your own backyard. That's
yeah.
kind of
And they
crazy.
can probably also source local people there in Ireland too to do some of the work,
Yeah.
which is, not, I mean, good for those in Ireland, but not good for us here.
Yeah. I don't want to go too down that rabbit hole because I want to talk about
Yeah.
you and what you're doing and stuff. But it just fascinates me what's involved, and people go, "Oh man, I had to pay $9 for that movie." And you go, "Dude, that freaking movie cost, $500 million and 1,000 people. Yeah, you
Right.
paid $9." So, but I was interested in not only what you're doing as far as, being an agent and stuff like that, but what you're doing with the hypnosis and the NLP. Um, I mean, why did you start getting into that? I mean, were you fascinated with that before you started being an agent, or
Oh,
or-
absolutely. I was always interested growing up with the power of the mind and the and yeah, I've always had this passion for psychology. I was an avid reader growing up, so I love book. I love books. Yeah, and the library was like my sanctuary when I was in high school and junior high and high school. So I read a lot of books, and I just started reading books about the brain and behavior and human behavior, and I became very interested in this topic. So I that's when I declared when I was like, between my sophomore and junior years of high school, I want to major in psychology. And so that's what I did on my undergraduate career. But I also had interest in the creative arts too. I wasn't necessarily so much of an actor, but I was in a drama club in high school. And then I took some acting classes and theater classes as electives in college for my undergraduate years. And I really enjoyed the classes. They were great classes. So I kind of, that went on the back burner after I received my bachelor's and master's. And then I started working, with a few people in New York City, networking with a few people, and started doing some, this is right around 9/11. And I started working on some 9/11 charities and organizations, both professionally. I was working with American Red Cross professionally, but I was also doing some volunteer work. And I started meeting, again, actors and other people in show business in New York, because New York City is like one of the showbiz capitals on the East Coast. So I really became interested in it again now, and I tried my hand as an actor, but it wasn't really for me. But what I did notice, though, when I would go on set, whether it's working on a commercial, working on a short film or a student film, I really enjoyed the process, watching it being made. I enjoyed being around the other actors in the company of other actors. And I started when I was, because at that time, what we used was a big newspaper Backstage, which is Backstage Magazine.
Hmm.
And that would come out every week, and we'd look through Backstage, and we would, what I found myself doing was looking at all the notices, circling roles, and handing out to people I knew, actor friends of mine, like, you should look into this, you should look into that, you should look into this, and they would start doing it, and someone turned to me and said, "You should be an agent." I was like, okay, because at that point I realized, okay, this is not for me. This acting is not for me. However, I don't want to stop working with actors. I love actors. I love theater people. So I then just, decided to open up my company. And I did this in 2000, fall 2004. I started my first company in LLC, but I was also interested in psychology. So to kind of make my family happy in a sense, because that was really thrill them when I wanted to become an agent. Because I have a non-show business family. So I decided, I was like, I might as well complete the PhD. So I enrolled in an online distance program through Walton University, and that's where I did my PhD. While I was doing my PhD, we had to do a major project, an overhaul project. And I decided that I would do my project on actors and self-sabotage because of the problem I was having. As I told, brief earlier moment, I couldn't figure out what's up with actors. And so the advice I received from my PhD advisors were to pick a topic that we're passionate about, like answer a question. What's up with these actors was like my question. And so my advisor said that's a great dissertation topic. And so that's what I did. I focused on self-defeating behavior and performing artists. While I was going to school for initially clinical psychology, that was my specialty when I was going for my PhD. I started to become a little disillusioned with clinical psychology. Not psychology in general, just the clinical side of things. So one day I was reading an article in Psychology Today, and it says learn hypnosis. Okay, it was an online video course initially. That was my first foray into it. I was like, this is really interesting and fascinating, because what I liked about it was hypnosis. The change, behavior change, is much more rapid than traditional psychotherapy. Like the change. So I was like, huh, I want to know more. Obviously, because a video course is not going to tell me much. So I enrolled in New York City a school of hypnotherapy. I did a 3 month certification program in transversal hypnotherapy, and then I just became more interested more. So I did a couple more certifications, and then I learned about neurolinguistic programming (NLP). So I started studying that because it's all about like modeling human excellence. That's what NLP really is all about. It's just the study of human excellence, which is something I've always been gravitated towards, positive psychology and optimism and all of that. So I so I became more gravitated towards that and less towards clinical psychology route. So
It's interesting what type of bond. I mean, anyone who's like I said, I goofed around with it in high school, and I did 1 year at San Diego Mesa College. Go Thunderbirds! Like it's really
mhm.
tiny junior college in San Diego. But it's an interesting bond when you're with a bunch of fellow actors, actresses, when you're doing a production, and it's got a good run going, and you're dealing with all those personalities. It's a really interesting dynamic, isn't it?
Yeah, it really is. It really is an interesting dynamic just to see, the the process and just to know actors and it's funny because I talk to people that are not in actor circles, and some people say, okay, they don't like working with actors because it's so dramatic and flighty. And the one thing I can say, because I worked in academia too, I was for 5 years from 2000 to 2013. I was a full time professor at a community college. So I worked in academia, and I can tell you there was more fighting and instability there than there were with the actors I work with.
I believe that. I believe that. But I can also see though that doing the hypnosis and but especially the NLP, the neuro linguistic programming with the actors, actresses, I mean, that could be a huge benefit for these guys if they're willing to trust you and allow you to work with them on that stuff.
Absolutely, and I do a lot of it unofficially, where it's not in a setting because I don't, obviously get my acting clients as an agent, so I'm not going to be doing dual roles. It wouldn't be ethical for me to do that, but I do offer some reframes and coaching in a sense where I'm borrowing from NLP.
Mhm. Yeah.
And a lot of the hypnosis that I kind of refer to as waking hypnosis, because when most people hear hypnosis, they think of somebody, swinging a pocket watch or a pendulum and, people acting like a chicken and acting
You're
strange.
getting sleepy.
Yeah. Of all my studies of hypnosis, I've never seen that being done, where, swinging a watch until it's feeling when they're getting sleepy. So, but, I digress. But the thing about it with NLP is I can often integrate that. So one thing is the language we use. Now, language and words are extremely powerful, and they can, in a sense, hypnotize us into believing certain things about ourselves just by the language we use and the words we use. So one thing that I tell my client, acting clients or any actor really, is to get the idea out, out of your vocabulary and out of your brain of the starving artist. Now, we society tends to romanticize the starving artist, like glorify it. I'm not sure why, but that when you say to yourself or to other people, you're a starving artist, you're limiting yourself. You're setting a limiting belief already in that you're going to always be struggling or you're not going to make enough money. And so, therefore, it's better to kind of say you're a professional working actor rather than you're a starving artist.
You know, going back to the self-doubt, the imposter syndrome, love that. Um, the fear of success and the self-sabotaging patterns. I mean, knowing a number of actors like I do and being around it, my whole life, wow. I mean, those four things nail it. It's really, really challenging. I could see where you don't want to cross the line with your actual, when you're an agent for someone looking for work for them. Um,
Yeah.
but I would still imagine that they would, if they were smart, a lot of the people who were your clients or that you've helped would ask you about it or would come to you, maybe not for the complete therapy package, but at least ask you maybe to walk them through some of that stuff because it's a total mind screw. I mean, being in that business.
It really is because you're being, no matter how talented as an actor you are, you're always going to be told no more than yes
Yeah.
because it's overly competitive. There's at least just in New York alone, there's at least between 150 to 200,000 actors, and even now you add that, multiply that in LA, you're talking almost close to a million in the United States that are struggling working actors. And the latest stats, especially by even SAG-AFTRA, that only 2% of those numbers are really working enough to a point where they can make a full time living off of acting. Most the other 97, 98% of that other actors have to have some sort of survival job
Yeah.
or day job in a sense to supplement sustain
Yeah.
a living. So the numbers aren't so good in
Yeah.
the sense
And
of
there's
desirable.
new, there's another bus showing up at the depot every day, from Iowa and from Kansas, and there's another Norma Jean showing up, every
Mhm.
day, and it's like, holy crap, I gotta stay at my game. Um, how has, I mean, you remember when we had three television channels and we had a couple of studios. Um, how has it affected that your business now with Amazon being so prominent and Netflix being and
Yeah,
Apple jumping in there. Has that helped your business, giving
I
more
would say
roles?
it's kind of a double-edged sword. On one hand, the amount of productions and jobs that you can get as an actor has skyrocketed
Yeah.
because there's so many new shows popping up. The downside is the pay rates are not as good, because there's so many. And one of the issues that come up, especially with like the streaming services, is how do you calculate residuals? How do you calculate usage fees and all of that, and viewership numbers? Whereas, of course, if you're on a traditional network or NBC, CBS, you're on a show or HBO, you can obviously do the ratings, traditional ratings, and get numbers that way. So that was a lot of the struggle that came in, especially with SAG after was how do you calculate residuals? Because you do earn residuals as an actor if you're on a TV series and it keeps airing, like keep doing reruns. Well, how do you measure that when it's streaming? That anybody can turn on, and watch an episode or a movie at any time. Whereas at least with the networks, you know how many times it aired, or how many times it was streamed. But now with everything being digital, that can be a challenging thing. So that's part of the reason why SAG after went on strike was because of those issues when it comes to residuals. So on one hand, again, there's a much more work because when I first started in New York, we had The Sopranos, we had Sex and the City, and the soap operas. And if you wanted to be a screen actor, particularly, you went to Hollywood
Yeah.
because there was not much in New York. New York was a theater town. If you wanted to work on musical theater or Broadway, yeah, New York was the place to be. Still is. But it wasn't really until like, Netflix and Hulu got into the game and Amazon got into the game that it's jumped from a handful to about 70 to 80 productions a year happening in New York. So it was a skyrocket as far as the number of acting opportunities. So on one hand, it did definitely help, and also it provided, because a lot of times these things are digital. You didn't necessarily have to be a household name to get land to lead in a TV series anymore.
Yeah.
One of the successful TV shows that I've booked a lot of actors on, and that I kind of grew into the industry was this Netflix series Orange is the New Black. Most of the cast members that were regulars on Orange is the New Black were not necessarily household names. They were Some of them was like their first major acting job, because what Netflix was going for, especially with that series, was more about authenticity with type rather than
Yeah.
stereotypical Hollywood.
Yeah.
So, and when that model really worked well, because it was really one of the top rated shows on Netflix, it kind of opened the door for other, showrunners to say, "Hey, I want to put a show on Netflix or Amazon or Hulu." So, the amount of production just skyrocketed from that.
Yeah. Well, I would imagine that does open up a lot more roles. I mean, you need a lot more bodies, and you certainly don't have the money initially. Like you become a Yellowstone, now you got tons of dough. But I mean, initially, a lot of these smaller episodes and things like that don't have the money, so would prefer to use, lesser known people. But not to go
Yeah,
down too
and
weird of a rabbit hole, but what about AI? I mean, what's going to
that was
happen
another
with
thing I was about to say that too.
yeah,
So that's a rapidly developing phenomenon. At that time, when that was another thing that Screen Actors Go were starting to worry about, was especially how do you control voice and image things too now. So, and the fact is that AI is developing at an exponentially rapid, fast rate. That now we can start creating videos, realistic videos, with AI, which is both amazing and scary at the same time.
I'm going with scary. I
Yeah,
don't want to be. I'm amazed enough as it is. I don't want to be any more amazed. That's just scary to me.
and what concerns me now is that you can now clone people's voices, and now there's technology that you can actually just clone someone's voice and have them doing whatever it needs to be done. When I published my book, and this was just last year, I was getting a lot of offers from companies to do AI audiobook narrating, and I was like, no, I'm not. I did get my audiobook, but I did a real person. I'm like, I'm not doing an AI bot to narrate my book. First, today I'm not comfortable with that, and B, it would be taking away from somebody who's a voice actor to do that. So, because nowadays you can actually, there's so much software that you could take a voice for 1 minute, a minute of somebody's voice, and now clone it, and it almost sounds realistic. So it is a cause of concern, and especially now with background actors, because now they're saying you can actually just
Yeah.
CGI a crowd scene in and not have to worry about hiring the hundreds of extras anymore.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
and technically, you could really have the same people doing extras, so nobody's going to notice it that they're the same people because everyone's focusing when you're watching a TV show or movie, focusing just primarily on the principal characters. So that's a bit of concern. Now, I don't necessarily, my agency, I don't work with background actors, but I know a lot of, especially union members, that make their wages and health insurance off of doing doing background work. So that's a little bit of a concern too, how that's going to wear in there. And still to this day, even though the video AI video still looks AI if you look closely, but it's getting better and better. That some companies are saying they're going to start making AI movies, complete movies with just AI.
Pretty scary. I mean, you look at some of these like Marvel movies, which I'm not a
Mm-hmm.
big fan of, but my wife is.
Yeah,
She dragged me to one, and I said, I'm never coming back to this. This is horrible. Um, but literally, I mean, you could make that entire movie AI. I mean, there's no acting to it. It's just constant action and blowing up and green screens and crazy shit. I mean,
yeah,
you could literally make a Marvel movie AI without a single actor in it, I think.
yeah. And even now, a lot of times the voices and images are getting real and looking real.
Yeah.
So
Tell me, we can talk about that all day because that just fascinates me, but it scares me at the same time.
but
But
the same here,
tell
yeah.
me now about your book and
So,
what's the title and what is your book about and who is it for?
so my book is called Rise Above the Script: Confronting Self-Doubt, Mastering Self-Sabotage for Performing Artists. It is written initially for actors. I mean, that was the primary focus because it was actually based on my doctoral dissertation loosely. I mean, I kind of based it off of that work, but it really can be applicable to anybody, any profession, because we all deal with self doubt and self sabotage. And I have a lot of tips in there to really overcome that. And I feel like those tips can be used for anybody.
Well, I mean, the book was basically originally written for actors to overcome what the four things that we talked about as far as the imposter syndrome, self-doubt, things like that.
Yeah, fear of success, fear of money, improving the relation with money,
Hmm.
um, self improving your self efficacy, dealing with fear of success, fear of change, and all that.
Yeah, that basically does touch everyone on the planet. So
Yes,
your book now is for everybody.
it really is. I mean, like I said, even though it's written, I had performing artists and actors in mind, it really is applicable to anybody.
Yeah. So what brought you to the book? Did you after just experience all these people and you see all the challenges, said, I've got to put this into a book because
Well,
you can't really work with some people, like you said. There's a little wall there between some people, but you could sure hand them your book, right? And say, you got to read this.
yeah, I mean, I wanted, because a lot of people were not talking about this professionally. When did my doctoral dissertation, like this was over 10 years ago when I was, in the middle of the process, there was very little written about actors, professionally. So I kind of did that to bridge the gap a bit. I was like, we have to bridge the gap a little bit. And So it wasn't until when I defended and published, my PhD dissertation, my advisors who are my committee, for the entire process said, you should really should look into publishing. And so it took me a couple, several years later, but I decided, I was going to do that because I wanted to, A, leave a contribution. And I have all these conversations, but I wanted to kind of take it and expand it.
Yeah. We all deal with every one of those things. I mean, self-doubt, imposter syndrome, fear of success is a huge one for a lot of people, and self-sabotaging patterns. I mean, the book really works for everybody. And in it, do you get into your NLP work, your hypnosis work, or is it
A
just a
little bit,
program?
a little bit. And, in an applied way. Like I talk about, again, the limiting beliefs and the language you use, and even the power of visualization.
Mhm. The I went to your website, and your website is fascinating. I didn't expect to find what I found on your website as far as where you go with that. Tell us about your website and what's on there.
So my website is, at the time of this is going to be is a work in progress. So right now, what I have on there is there's a lot of stuff available for everybody. I have a lot of recordings and brief meditations and audios where that's on every topic you want to do. Leadership, public speaking, sports performance, addictions, anxiety of any way, sleep. There's a lot of stuff for everybody. They're in the 15 to 17 minute downloads that you can get, and you can listen to them on a daily basis.
Well, I thought that was fascinating. I mean, I went there expecting something else, just about your acting stuff or about your, agent stuff. And it's all like the hypnosis stuff. It's all like helping you with, like you said, your stresses, your, rest, just mindset, stuff like that. Uh, did you, why did you pull that out? What made you want to do that?
Well, I always liked. I wanted to do short term project and help the world because if I can do even microdoses, a lot of people also are afraid of all that type of work.
Yeah.
And I wanted to demystify the process a bit and
Mhm.
show how this can be really, work for good in a sense. And it's so important for our mindset. I mean, that we talk about obviously, the mechanics of whatever craft or profession are important, but so is the power of your mind. And that's why like a lot of athletes often need motivational coaches and even sports psychologists because the mindset will really make a huge difference in athletic performance. And the same thing goes with any performance, whether we're in sales or teaching or presenting. The mindset, the human mind, and how we approach the situation is very, very powerful.
Yeah. Yeah. And like you said, I mean, it works for everybody. I got into NLP long time ago. I mean, I've been doing my thing for 35 years, which is hard to believe. But yes, I've been in broker for 30, but very early on, I followed a trainer. I've always had a real estate coach, and I had a trainer who was started doing the neuro-linguistic programming and
Hmm.
and the mirror and matching and stuff. And I was fascinated. I was kind of like, dude, is this fair? I mean, when you're talking with a seller about their home, I mean, is it fair to kind of do this stuff? And because you're really out there to help them. But he's like, yeah, that's the connections. It's how you're getting connection and how
Right.
that they know that you're locked in. So it's really fascinating. So again, you said you really don't work with your agent clients on this, but do you have an outside practice that you work with some people doing this?
A little bit. That's part of the reason why I released the recordings, and put
Hmm.
the recordings up. So I can help the masses in a sense at a much lower, economic rate than I would on a one-to-one session. But I do have a part time where I will work with people one on one, and if that's something listeners are interested in, just reach out to me. Um, and I do that, from time to time.
Where do
But
you where do you see your business going? I mean, what do you think? I mean, where is Dr. Albert going to go? I mean, where do you? I mean, do you
Well,
feel that your calling now is more to the work or still the agent stuff? Where do you think?
that's a bit of a crossroads, and I kind of think it's more towards the work.
Mhm,
I'm still going to be an agent for as long, and the thing about right now, we're in a recession as far as the show business side of things. So I'm not, it's a little doubtful about how long this is going to last. But I love working with actors. So whether what capacity I'll be working in a couple of years is still up for grabs.
mhm. Yeah.
But I do feel like I'm drawn to helping other people too, like a greater message. And the goal for me is I want to. The next project I'm be working on is working on a more of an authentic model of coaching, where like starting a group coaching program, leading more authentic lives, and really tapping into your inner potential.
Are you thinking of doing a system where you're coaching other coaches based on your on your theories, or are you going to be just doing the coaching yourself?
I would say a combination of both.
Hmm.
I think if I'm going to be working with coaches, I would want to at least have some direct experience with a lot of people first, and then go into that, training other coaches in the methodology. But it would just really about taming into your inner power, because I've always believed that we have the power within to solve our problems and to solve whatever we need to do, in life. The answers are within, and sometimes we just don't listen to that part of
Yeah.
us,
Yeah.
and we don't trust it.
Is I would imagine so, and I'm going to ask you because you know better than me, but is the mental health field as taboo in Hollywood as it is out in the real world, where a lot of actors and actors don't want to say I'm going to a mental coach or a
I
psych.
think it's
Something.
I think it's becoming more and more mainstream now
Hmm.
than it was 20 years ago.
Hmm.
I think just we have less of a stigma now on mental health treatment. Because back in the earlier day, it used to be a stigma or a sign of weakness
Yeah.
if you were going to go see a therapist. But nowadays it's almost like a badge of strength, and you see a lot of people having more open and honest conversations about this.
Yeah. I think that's a great calling for you is like, yeah, the agent gig's good, but man, you've got a million potential clients that you could help their brain, which will
Yeah.
eventually help them achieve more in their profession. It's one of the toughest besides sales, sales too, but I mean that acting business is one of the toughest there is. Boy, you gotta just it'll chew you
Hmm.
up and spit you out. I mean, we've all seen someone who comes in, they're flashing a pan, you think they're the next, Gregory Peck, and then the next thing you know, they're gone. It's like it really is a tough biz, but
It really is, and it takes a long time and a lot of resilience to do this.
yeah, yeah. You see an overnight success who's been grinding away in the back alleys for 20 years, right? And all of a sudden
Exactly.
he's an
It took
overnight success.
it took 20 years for them to become an overnight success, and that's where I think a lot of people may not understand that initially in the beginning.
Yeah, yeah. So, Doc, you've been amazing. I lied earlier. I'm a real estate broker. We lie. And I said I just had one question, but I actually have two questions. And so my
Okay.
second my, I'm a liar. My second question is if you had a thought or a saying or a belief, or if there was something that you'd really like to leave our guests with, something that meant something to Dr. Albert that you'd like to leave with us, what would that thought be?
I think I would want to get address a misconception about the word rejection, and a lot of what I believe fully, and this is that comes from my NLP experiences. There's no such thing as rejection. It's just a gentle reminder that your services are not needed today.
Wow. I mean, that's a great way to twist a painful situation. I mean, we all deal with it in certain aspects. I know I deal with it. I go on a listing appointment and they hire a different realtor. That hurts. I mean,
It
rejection
does.
is, an actor or actress goes for a role and you get rejected. Boy, you just can't get out of bed to go to the next audition because of that one. And like you said, you have to understand you just didn't fit what they're looking for. It's okay. Doesn't mean you're
Yeah,
not a good
no, not
actress.
at all. And it just you just got to keep up and keep doing it. It's like you fall off that bike, you're going to do it again. And another thing I'll mention here is especially for any listeners, well, we all were kids at one point, but think about if you have when you're raising a toddler and they learn to walk. How many times do they fall down before they can actually take their first steps? Yeah, I've never seen anybody say, I quit walking.
I'm just done. I'm gonna just sit here the rest of my life. I'm not gonna do it anymore.
Exactly.
You can't
Like,
make me.
right. If you think about it, it's that determination.
Exactly. That's great. All right, Doc. Well, where can everybody find Dr. Albert Bramante? Tell us about your book, your website, what else you have going on. Where can we find the amazing Dr. Albert?
Well, I would definitely encourage you to get the book. It's on Amazon. It's both a paperback, Kindle, and audiobook format. You can go to my website, albertvermonti.com, and you can also follow me on social media. I'm on LinkedIn, Instagram and Facebook. Just look up Albert Vermonti, and I'd love to connect with all of you.
Absolutely. And I really enjoyed your website. I mean, I listened to a lot of those different downloads and there's some great stuff on there. And I think people, what's your website called? It's just your name or what's your website called?
Yeah, it's just Albert Vermonti right now.
Okay, yeah. So guys, go to albertbramante.com, go to the website, and there's some really awesome downloads on there. You'll get a vibe out of those. Listen to that. Go find the book, and get more of Dr. Albert Bramante. He's a cool dude. And I can't wait for your next chapter of what you're going to do next. I think it's
Well,
going to
thank you.
be awesome. And we'll touch
Well, thank
base
you,
and
Gary.
and do a recap on what happens next. Either that or your
I look
trip
forward.
around the world.
Yeah, that I'll just you'll catch my live stream. There you go.
All right, everybody. You just had the wonderful time with Dr. Albert Bramante.
Bye.
Thank you so much. And thank you for listening to the What If You Could Pass. See you, everybody. Appreciate you.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye. Thanks again for joining us on another episode of What If You Could podcast. Please subscribe, like, share, and give us any feedback. We'd love to hear it. And remember, if you can dream it, you can do it. See you next time.